So I have a 1959 250 PF Coupe that was restored in Latvia. It's a car that I've talked about on my website. Done pretty well, but it came to me because I consulted in the restoration, and they got it pretty good. I mean, I think they did a pretty nice job. And so the owners decided that he wants to take it to Cavallino. So Cavallino is a Ferrari-only show that's been around for many, many years down in South Florida. And it is basically one of the top shows, just shy of Pebble Beach. It is probably one of the hardest shows to win, win top prizes. He wants to take it to this show because it's the first time this car has been shown, and obviously he's proud of the work, he's proud of the car that he owns, the owner, but at the same time it also adds to the value of the car. If you can actually win at a Concours, then it only adds provenance to the car. So I feel it's a win-win for everybody. The restoration shop gets kudos for doing a good job. The owner gets to have a car that has a proven track record, that it's done well, and my job, of course, is also to be proud of the job that I did. What I'm involved with this car is getting it to this level so that we can show. Now, this car looks fantastic. It's driving, it's running. I was involved in it, in finding it. We shipped it to Latvia. I flew out to Latvia, consulted on it. Through COVID, I did Zoom calls with them and got this car to this point. Now that it's back at my shop, I need to go through some of these little details. What ends up happening is showing a car at a Concours is that it starts at 100 points, and the deductions start with things that are incorrect or not original to the way the car came, and they start deducting points. 97 points is the margin. It's 3 points, and once you go below 97 points, you don't have what they call a platinum award, which is the top award. At Cavallino, you either win the platinum or you don't. So the wiggle room of having something found incorrect on the car is 3 points. So when I look at this car, as perfect and as beautiful and as well done as it is, you can pull 3 points off the car. And honestly, I hate to say it, but you could pull 3 points off of a lot of cars. So the issue is whether or not you can get the judges to miss them, or you try to get the car as close to perfect as possible. A lot of times what I do with a car is I will look at it and say, these are the easy ones to correct. Let's correct them. And then some of the points will sit and say, it's not worth doing it. And for a 1 point deduction, if we can get the rest of the car correct and you get, let's say 99, it's very rare to get a 99 point car. But the thing is, let's say we get close, you might still squeak by with a platinum without having to, let's say, repaint the car or, replace this whole thing. And, because it really is it's a points game. It's like, how much do you want to spend to gain 1 point? How much do you want to spend to get half a point? So some of that is in negotiations. It's risky because it's easier to just do everything perfect. No compromise. But an open checkbook is very rare. So a lot of times that's a compromise. So let me go over some of the things that I found on this car that I need to correct in order to make this car a little bit closer to perfect. When you look at the engine compartment, it looks really nice. I mean, it looks pretty well done. Everything's correct, or at least it's nice, clean, shiny. But here are the things that I found. First off, the Acorn Nuts seem to be a little shiny. And when I checked with the restoration shop, I said, what did you guys do with the Acorn Nuts? And they said, oh, well, we thought they were chrome plated. And I said, no, they're not. They're actually white cad. Now, is that a little bit too anal retentive to say the difference? Well, that if a judge is smart enough and to recognize that those Acorn Nuts are too shiny, he's going to make let's say a half a point. I don't know what they do if they do quarter point deductions, but half a point is certainly not unheard of. And when you look at this, If I were judging, I would take a point. I would take a half a point off because those acorn nuts. Now, we can replace all the acorn nuts, but one of the things I try to do is I try to dull the acorn nuts down a little bit. I know it's chrome and I know it's supposed to be white cad. White cad is kind of, here, I'll give you an example. The hose clamps, those are white cadmium plated. So you can see how they have like a warmish white color to it. And that's a plating that goes, cadmium plating on top of steel. So, you know, you can try to do it. And what I've done is I tried to take a Scotch-Brite pad, which is here, you know, like that, and also on a buffing wheel, and I try to take some of the shininess off of the plating. You could see that center acorn nut on the intake manifold compared to the one next to it. I don't know if you can see the shininess difference with the with this light, but I tried to take some of the shininess off of it. But what I found on the smaller acorn nuts is that the plating was coming off, and then if you look really closely, which I tried to stop in time, is that the copper plating that they often do with chrome plating, not industrial chrome plate, but like, you know, show quality chrome plate, what they do is they do nickel, they do copper, nickel, and then chrome. Those are the three plating process, electroplate on chrome. And evidently, as I buffed through the chromium top layer to try to get the really, it's actually pretty thin chrome plating on this one, but once I buffed past the you know, trying to take some of the shininess off of it, I started to see some of the copper poke through. And what I'm concerned about is, I counted, there's 44 acorn nuts here. So every one of them has to be carefully buffed. Every one of them has to be taken down to a certain point. It really starts to come down to money versus time. I could just go buy the acorn nuts and replace them with the right correct CAD. I'm going to check to see if those acorn nuts are available. There are two types of acorn nuts that are available for these cars. They're called the tall ones and the short ones. The 250 outside plug engines get the tall acorn nuts. So I have to see if the acceptable acorn nuts these days are being sold, and I could just buy 44 of them, remove all of them, and put them on there. You know, that's a lot of discussion for just acorn nuts, but that's one of the issues that we're dealing with. Battery terminals are incorrect. They're just kind of auto parts store clamps. I have correct ones on order that are coming in. This cladding is correct, so that's good, but I'll have to figure out, hopefully there's enough there that I can cut down and attach to the correct one. You know, here's a, you know, question that we often, you know, suffer over, and color and things like that. So on first glance, the coils are a little bright red. The original coil color is like a darker, almost like a primer red color, and these, the color here is a little bright. So I'm debating about taking them off. Now, some discussions among judges are that they might have started out at this color, but because coils get hot, resistors get hot, and through the years, through the heat cycling, the paint will darken and get red, but or get darker and turn that color. But you know, that's a question of whether or not you know, what is the original color. Another issue here, which I don't know, I need to do some research and discuss it with some of the judges, is the distributor caps. Distributor caps originally are brown. The replacement ones, reproduction replacement ones, are black. Is this a replacement item? What a lot of times on discussions with judges is that, you know, if it's a replacement item, then they're not going to complain about, you know, it's a service item like an oil filter, but you know, you don't have to have original. Obviously, you know, these are Baldwin oil filters, and that's what they would put on them. I think that we need to have matching oil filters, would be nice. I have to figure that out. But on this car, the oil filters are not, you know, you don't have, there are people who use these reproduction oil filters, you know, these Fram with the stickers and all this other stuff. I don't think that's a point deduction, nor is it a point add. It's kind of nice, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think that that's the same ruling as far as the distributor caps are concerned. I've had those discussions, and I believe so. But I will definitely double check before I go and change anything. I'm in the process of replacing the horn hoses, because the horn hoses originally came on these cars were like a cream colored or clear. There's some discussion as to whether or not it should be clear or cream, but the ones that were installed on this car were red, and those are wrong because the later cars had red coils, red horn hoses. So I'll be changing those out. But other than that, you know, there are a couple little things here and there in the engine compartment. I'm changing the heater hoses. The heater hoses as well were incorrect. They were just regular auto parts heater hoses. There's a specific type of heater hose that comes on this car, and you know, it's like a cloth wrapped texture, and they like to see that, so I'll be doing that too as well. So moving on to the trunk, the biggest issue that we've had with the trunk is that the original, when it came, it had a quilted material, and I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, this trunk doesn't get a quilted material. Big discussion, you know, and almost argument about what was correct and what isn't correct. I've done 2 original PF Coupes, Series 2 PF Coupes, and never saw the diamond quilting. As you can see here, see this diamond quilting. And so when I talked to the upholsterers in Latvia, they said that they were told by a supplier that it was supposed to be diamond quilting. I disagreed, and you know, went through paperwork and discussion, and you know, people digging in their heels. And at the end of the day, we decided that I was right, which I'm not trying to say that was a victory. I'm just saying that the information that was given was incorrect, and it was based on real information that I saw. Series 2 PF Coupe, you know, from this era, very close serial numbers to this car, were not done with quilting. So there's no reason why there would be quilting on this car. So I unfortunately have to redo some of the panels. Not all of it was done. The floor trunk panel was done flat, which is fine. So the only piece that I've had to remove, or the pieces I've had to remove, are these pieces here that are going to have to be reupholstered. Again, that, you know, in the trunk area, that can be another point deduction. So when you look at what you have as far as point deduction, you lose a point, half a point on the Acorn Nuts. You lose a half a point on the hoses. You lose, you know, let's say somebody gives you a half or a quarter point deduction for the color of the coils. Then you lose a half a point. You know, it's like you keep adding it up, and it's like a death of 1,000 cuts. Not even 1,000 cuts. This is a death from 3 cuts. It's like basically at half points, you get 6 things wrong on the car. You're out of platinum contention. So that's another project that I have to kind of take care of before Cavallino, and that's what I saw in the trunk area. Other than that, you know, things like that, the trunk seal's correct, all this stuff is correct. Okay, another area of issues were the knockoffs. I have sent the knockoffs out because the wrong ones are installed. There were 2-ear knockoffs. I got the 3-ear knockoffs because the 3-ear knockoffs are correct. They're also concave or convex knockoffs, which when they come back, I'll take a picture and you can see what the correct ones are. But that's another correction. Moving on to tools. Tools have become very important because in a show field, it is tools, books and tools for a Ferrari is 4 points total. I mean, that's what they basically, the judging committee has decided that 4 points are to be given to books and tools. So tools gets 2 points and the books get 2 points. So let's take a look at these tools. So this is the correct original bag. It's not a reproduction. This is a, actually no, yeah, this is an original bag, just in really good shape. You could tell because the little details of the leather are there. There's an emboss piece here that grain on the leather, on the edges. You know, admittedly, they can do that in reproduction, but they really have to work hard at doing these little details here with the rivets and things. It is a vinyl bag. It has a greenish black backing to the vinyl, so the reproductions have a real trouble trying to find that particular material. So a lot of times to tell, you know, the original bags is to look for the backing, and also look at the grain of the vinyl, and then look at the way the little leather edging is. Those little things are what separates from an original bag. So this car is pretty complete as a toolkit, but what's interesting is a lot of people use parts books to show pictures of the toolkit. However, this car, being from 1959, is kind of a in between. So let me explain. This is just a photocopy of an old parts book. This is what Ferrari called a 250 GT or Gran Turismo. Ferrari didn't necessarily call these cars 250 PF Coupe, 250, you know, a Buono or Elena. The names that we use for these cars when we call them PF Coupe or Elena or Buono was because back in the day when Ferrari sold a 250, it was a 250 GT. It was a 250 2+2. An Elena was built by an Elena factory. The Pininfarina Coupe was built by Pininfarina, but Ferrari still sold them as a 250 GT. So as an example, the manual for a 250 GT/E Pininfarina 2+2, this manual was published and put in 250 Lusos because it was basically the manual that they published. They didn't write a new owner's manual for every model that they built. So what we have is we have one manual. This is the parts book for a 250 GT that they basically distributed back in those days. And what they did was, you could tell that it's for an early car because when you look inside here, a lot of these things show early car stuff, which is the Hyundai shocks, the lever shocks. It shows there's pictures in here of the brake system, and it shows pictures of the way this suspension is, and it also shows drum brakes. So we know that drum brake cars were early, probably you know in the mid 50s. But this parts book was still given and used for the 250 Pininfarina Coupes, even though the later cars didn't have some of these things. So what's interesting is there's also a diagram of the toolkit in the back of the parts book. However, this toolkit is similar to the one that we have here, but it's different. And the differences are that the long-handled screwdriver, or rather the long-handled spark plug wrench, as opposed to the short one that I have here, is because the long-handled is for an inside plug engine. This is early cars. Ferrari switched from inside spark plugs or inside the V to the outside of the V at some point, and they changed the length of the spark plug. Also, there are wrenches in here that are specific to early car. For instance, the tool for the Hyundai shock that's in there. That's something that goes, but not everything in this kit is specifically for a 250 or a Pininfarina Coupe because it was a later car. So just because the manual shows that doesn't necessarily mean that it should be exactly to this toolkit, simply because this toolkit was probably put together, I mean not probably, it was put together for an outside plug Pininfarina car or an outside plug 1959 Ferrari. So generally, even though it doesn't follow the toolkit that you see in the diagram of an earlier manual, it's because it goes with logic. This toolkit was sold, or the way I'm putting the toolkit together is what would have come with this Pininfarina Coupe. And what we do is if you look at the back of the GTE manual, see if I can get to the page, there's a kit. Now, GTEs came out in 1960. So the year after this car was made. However, a PF Coupe has very much the same, almost the same things or accessories and mechanicals as a 250 GTE, which this kit looks very similar to what we see here. The difference being that GTEs all went to telescopic shocks, the Coney shocks, and this car still has the lever shock. So we would need the tool in the kit for a lever shock. So that's one thing that I would add to this toolkit to make it complete or correct. But I wouldn't go changing it to an earlier car and changing all those things to match an earlier car. So when you look at the toolkit, you know, part of the defense to the judges, or explaining to the judges what you have or what you don't have, is what year is the car, when was it put together, and which toolkit. It's subtle. It's a few things that you know you would change, but generally this kit is complete and ready for show. So that's all I have for now on this PF Coupe, but I'll shoot a follow-up video when I get a lot of these corrections done so that we can actually show you what a car ready for show looks like. Thanks for watching.